He is the chief of police of the Russellvillle Police Department, and today he's in the hot seat. David Ewing joins us on the spotlight next. Coming to you from the beautiful Olathe building in downtown Russellvillle, we welcome you into the spotlight. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Drew Brent, and if you're in the market to buy or sell your home, give us a call today. It's 479-968-5668, or cruise on over to russellvilleliving.com. One of our agents is always ready, willing, and able to serve you and your real estate needs. Give us a call today, 479-968-5668, or russellvilleliving.com. Our guest today, it's the second time he's been on the show, and so excited to have him here. He's the Chief of Police, David Ewing. Chief, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Drew. How you doing?
I am good, my friend, man. There's so much that you and I could talk about with things that are happening over at the police department. Always, and you know.
Yeah, we pre-gamed already.
We talked about this before we even pushed the record button. We had a show before we even had the show. But I will say this. There's a lot of good stuff happening over there, isn't there?
Well, yes, I would agree. There's a lot of good stuff. I mean, outside of our normal duties, just protect and serve.
Right.
As you have, I mean, we've made a lot of steps to be more progressive and find ways to better serve the community of Russellvillle.
When you talk about the word progressive, what do you mean? What are we trying to do there?
Well, and one of our main functions is crime suppression, and what tools do we need to help us, not just with crime suppression, but search and rescue and other, and just other functions that we're involved in providing effective police services to the community.
Sure. So
a lot of it has to do technology based. I can't remember what we talked about last time, but we added the canine officers. That's helped us with not only with our search and rescue, but with also drug enforcement. Apprehensions if necessary. I mean, that was another element we hadn't had in many years. So it's just what tools do we need to help us, do our job better so we can better serve the community.
I think we did talk about this last time, but I think it's important that we talk about it again. The police as a whole have been stigmatized in the country. There's always been a bit of a stigma anyway, just because of media portrayal and, the whole bad apple ideal. But I don't know that that's necessarily true of the Russellvillle Police Department. This is a department that's got full backing of the city council, full backing of the community, it seems like. And it seems to be going in a positive direction. Would you agree with that assessment?
I would agree, Drew. Since I've been chief, the last 18 months or so, I hadn't had the most calm period of time in our history.
Sure.
To be in charge, but what's really surprised me is and we've always had pretty decent support, in the time I've been with the Russellvillle Police Department, but it seems like here lately, in the last 5, 6, 7 years at least, that support for the police department has really grown. And when you look at these other places, like you mentioned, the stigma that's kind of out there, it's been out there for the last 18 months or so. You hear of departments where they're losing officers by the groves. They're they can't find applicants. They can't find anybody wanting to come into this profession. Now we have those challenges here as well, because it's just because of the stigma that's out there.
Right.
But I think what's so special about the River Valley law enforcement here in Polk County, not just the Russellville Police Department, is we have such support from our local politicians, the city council, the mayor's office, our state representatives, state senators. I mean, we have our local ones support us so well. The community supports us, and and I think that helps. We hadn't really lost anybody. We've had one or two leave, but we have not seen that mass exodus that I have seen in years past when you've had these situations come up, even with Russellvillle.
Right.
And we've not seen that. So I think I've got to attribute that to the local support that we have here for the police department. Because if you look at those other places, and you can read online why our officers leaving, like let's say Seattle or Portland, or they're saying, they're citing reasons. They're not talking about pay per se. They're talking about, I have no support from my department leaders. I don't have support from my politicians. I don't have support from the community. Why am I risking it
Right.
when I don't have support from anybody? But we don't have that here, and that's the message I would love to get out. Because we still go. I mean, we're still looking for applicants. We're still having those same challenges. Is that here in the River Valley with Russellvillle? I can speak to this for sure, that we have positive support for our police department from at all levels at this point, and that's just amazing to me, and it's really a blessing to be a chief, even though the era we're in, it's been kind of tough.
Sure.
At the same time, it's been a blessing because of the support that the community and our local leaders have shown toward the police department and its officers.
Well, there's something to be said too for the work that the Russellvillle Police Department has done. You don't garner that support just on rhetoric or propaganda. You garner that support through results, and RPD has done pretty well with that, haven't they?
We have. We're not perfect, and we'll make our mistakes just like anybody else. But what I like to think, about the Russellville Police Department is we're very well trained. We spend a lot of time and effort in, training our officers and trying to do the right thing. A lot of the initiatives that were out there, when we're talking about reform issues, we were already doing.
Right.
We were already putting an emphasis on mental health response before any of it was even mandated by the state. We were ahead of that game. Our tactics, like with active shooter events, we were already ahead of that before it became mainstream. So we have been, as far as being progressive, we've tried to see, okay, here's the trends around the nation with police departments or the situations they're dealing with, and we're trying to get ahead of those. Sure. Through our training, and just being ready to provide the best service we can. Because I've told the officers many times, I was like, we're only successful. It's not because of me being your chief. It's because of the work you do every day dealing with citizens, the heart you have for the community. I mean, I can't win people over. It's the guys who are out there on the street, the detectives working the cases. It's everybody under me. It's making it happen, and I'm proud of the work they do.
You said something there that I want to follow up on. Is it, in order to be a successful law enforcement official, I would have to assume that you have to have a heart for two things. You tell me if I've got this correct.
Okay.
That you would have to have a heart and a need to see justice served, but then also a heart to truly serve people. Is that fair?
That's fair. I know a lot of times when we're interviewing applicants or looking for applicants, of course you're looking. It takes a special person sometimes to be in law enforcement because you have to deal with a lot of stresses that normal people don't deal with. Not everybody's always happy. When you're there, someone's not having a good day. Right. Or they're having the worst day of their life, and you're trying to mitigate that. But I know when we're talking like about applicants, what we're looking for, a lot of times we can take a person who's an applicant and mold them into a law enforcement officer. But the one thing we always talk about is, do they have the heart for it?
Yeah.
You got to have the heart for. You got to be empathetic. You've got to care about what you're doing. Now, you can kind of get in a rut sometimes, but if you don't have that core of being, for the profession, for people that you're dealing with, and I see it every day. I wish, I know sometimes what's highlighted on the news or media sometimes is our mistakes, but if people could see every day what officers at the Russellville Police Department or even in the River Valley,
sure, yeah,
do on a daily basis, as far as, I've had officers buy groceries for people who were, I've had them even help find jobs for people or buy a bicycle that was stolen from a kid, mow a yard for someone who had a medical emergency that, in the middle of it. That was, someone videoed that. They didn't just do that because they knew someone was videoing it. They did it because of their heart. And that's the kind of people we look for and the kind of people I have. And I'm just blessed, with that. So it is hard. You're right in your statement.
I have another question about that too. One thing that you said that struck me, and I've never thought about it this way, is that every single day these officers who are on patrol for sure are dealing with people that, it's really almost impossible to have a quote unquote good day, because if you're showing up to someone's house, they're not having a good day
Right.
for some reason or another. How do you, what do you say to your officers to try to keep their mental health right? Because honestly, that's got to be taxing, knowing that if you show up, you're not really wanted there.
Well, I mean, that's always been kind of the element of the job. I mean, you know, then that's usually the hardest transition for an applicant, a new hire, to make is you're the problem solver. You're helping solve other people's problems, or at least mitigate it, when you might not have the life experiences to help mitigate it. You know, if I hire a 21-year-old officer who's never been married, never had kids, and he's going to handle a domestic or a divorce situation,
Right.
disturbance, he don't even have life experiences to pull from. So there's the stresses of trying to figure that out and learn. That's why experience is so important in this job. But, as far as their mental health, we're really good we've gotten better. And I think Russellville's, been ahead of the game a little bit, because you've heard a lot of, talk about mental health in officers here lately. The city of Russellville has a employee assistance program, where, we can give them a card where they can call and just have, talk to a therapist, and we wouldn't even know about it. It's kind of the anonymous way to, hey,
Sure.
if you need help, if you're going through a divorce as an officer, here, or if you're just having problems, you just need to talk to somebody. Of course, we keep an eye on our officers too, and sometimes we've actually offered and paid for services to get them treated. There's certain situations, if we have, if we deal with a real critical incident where it would mess up anybody, regardless of how callous you are, as an officer, how tough you are. We've sent them to, a deep critical incident debrief where they can talk to a therapist, see what their options, learn coping mechanisms to deal with the additional stressors that were unusual even for this job. So we have those mechanisms in place where we try to provide those services to our officers and keep an eye on them.
The police department as a whole has to be a band of brothers and sisters, has to be a family.
Right.
I really believe that. That's just from the outside looking in. But when they get home, they've got families of their own too. What's the balance look like?
I think it's like with any other job. You didn't even prep me for these questions before the pregame show.
Nope, we didn't talk about any of this.
We didn't talk about any of this. So, no, I mean, you'd be surprised, especially when we have new hires. And I'm not going to mention any names or anything like
Sure.
that. But, there is an adjustment when you go from, being just a regular person. Now you're in a position of public trust, authority, and you take that on where everybody's hypercritical of you. You're always being videoed. That's a very unusual adjustment. That's a hard adjustment going from
Sure.
normal life to that. And helping officers deal with those stresses. Part of our field training is, we do talk about that. We tell them, things, to do to try not to cope. We have those mental health things we talked about earlier.
Sure. Yeah.
But, you'd be surprised how, the veteran officers who kind of survived that, one way or the other, either the hard way or the easy way,
Right.
Whatever your coping mechanism is, we tell these young guys, here's how, spend time with your family. Get away from this job. Try to shut it off. It's hard to shut off. We try to give them that expert advice from the guys who've already lived through it. Because we focus on, okay, you do an important job, and when at the end of the day, it is still a job. Your family's more important. Don't sacrifice your family for this. Because in 5 years from now, no one's going to remember who you are. It'll be the next group of officers in here
Right.
after you leave. Don't sacrifice everything for this. It's as far as overcommitting.
Sure. Exactly. Right.
But I think a lot of it, as far as they're dealing with it, it's a lot of the senior guys who step in and, try to teach these younger guys what's really important in life. Here's how you deal with it. Don't turn to, certain behaviors that are more, destructive than others.
Sure.
Whether, we encourage them, if you're in the church, be active in your church, or if you like to go, off-roading, go off-roading, golfing, decompress, get away from this when you're off.
One thing we did talk about in our pregame, none of this was planned, but this part was planned. Drones.
Yes. Like I said, we're trying to be a progressive department and find the tools necessary to help us perform our missions. And the one thing that we are adding hopefully it'll be fully operational by November, is our drone program. It's a program that we've partnered with the Russellville Fire Department in, where we have a set of drones that we can use for a variety of things, like search and rescues, suspect apprehensions, situational awareness. I mean, there's just so many things you can do with a drone, even in fire scenes. Finding hot spots so that they can extinguish a fire quicker.
Right.
It brings another level of technology and a tool that we can use that you wouldn't think we would use it that much around here, but we have situations all the time. Just in the last couple of weeks, like, man, if we had a drone, we could have resolved this sooner. And we're talking like a missing, disabled child. We spent 7 hours in the neighborhood looking, and we didn't have the drone available. Maybe if we'd had that drone up there, we could have found her quicker. I mean, she was found safe.
Sure.
So everybody knows there's an end to that story.
Right. Yeah, and it's a positive end.
It's a positive, but. Manhunts. We had one recently. Where the county had a manhunt we helped them with. It'd be nice if we had a drone available to deploy quicker. We might have had a quicker resolution.
Right.
So, the drones. I mean, and there's a lot to do with drones. I mean, we're having to get. We've spent a lot of time training officers with the drones, getting their certifications with the FAA, policy development to make sure that we're using them proper and legal. Right. So, I mean, it's just. Really excited about the drone program and our partnership with the fire department, and I think that's going to add an element for the River Valley, that another great tool that will help us in our job duties.
One other thing that we did talk about during the pregame, I keep calling it the pregame.
Now I've got you. You're going to say that every time you interview somebody.
Well, I mean, I do play-by-play for Dardanelle football too,
mm-hmm.
and so I have to turn off spotlight host to Dardanelle football, because I'll start talking about, when did you call timeout there, Chief? One thing we did talk about though.
Yeah, my time management was off, Drew. I'm sorry.
I didn't manage the clock well.
I didn't manage
in the fourth quarter.
I didn't agree with that penalty, that flag they threw.
Flag. Well, you ought to come to Bob Keenan Field. You will see a whole lot of flags if you don't like. We were talking about. I know what we were talking about. Christmas is coming up, and and during the holiday season, it's unfortunate, but I mean, you can at times see uptick in crime just because of the way things are. People need money or whatever else to provide certain things, or just to get goods, or they see an opportunity. What are some things that people can do to make sure to protect themselves throughout the holiday season?
Well, during the holiday season, I mean, we might see a slight uptick. We're pretty lucky here. It's not a spike or a peak, but we do have the incidents occasionally that do come up, especially during the shopping. We would remind everybody during the holiday season, be aware of your surroundings. If you're walking in and out of stores, you're going to have bags, you're carrying purses. Mm-hmm. Just be aware where you're walking, who's around you. Kind of the normal thing we would expect anybody to do in their everyday living. But one of the big things is keep your cars locked, and keep your cars locked, keep your valuables hidden. Not just for the holiday season, but year round. I mean,
right.
if we have our biggest complaint about anything at the police department when it comes to, keeping crime down is, if people would lock their doors. A lot of those, vehicle break-ins are crimes of opportunity. They walk by a bunch of cars.
Right.
They'll pop the handle, see if it's unlocked. Rarely do they break windows out. Now, when they do that, it's because there's maybe a beautiful laptop sitting in the passenger seat, or something of a value that makes it worth the risk of them breaking a window to get that item. So, the main thing is, be aware of your surroundings, keep your cars locked,
mm-hmm.
and keep your valuables hidden if you keep them in the car, your presents in the trunk or whatever, so no one knows what's really in your car.
We've got the Chief of Police, David Ewing, from the Russellville Police Department on the spotlight. We're wrapping up with him after this. We're going to put him on the hot seat, some rapid-fire questions after this timeout. You're watching the Spotlight. Don't go anywhere. Welcome you back into the spotlight here at the Alathus Realty building, presented as always by Alathus Realty. And if you're in the market to buy or sell your home, give us a call today. It's 479-968-5668. Cruise on over to RussellvilleLiving.com. Chief of Police David Ewing is our guest at this time. Couple of rapid fire questions before we wrap up here, Chief. All right, we're going to see if we can get behind the man behind the badge. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Get the man.
I got my
behind the
penalty
badge.
flag to throw.
They throw the flag from before the break. All right.
All right.
We talked a little bit about balance earlier on, and if I love those true crime shows, I really do. I love the whole cop drama thing, but I know that it can be dramatically emphasized just for TV effect. And you've always got that story of the grizzled veteran cop who comes home and it's the same scene. You've seen it. They take their badge and their gun off and they loosen the tie and it's like, oh, it's just another rough one today. And it's always a story of a rough work-life balance. But I would assume that there is probably at least some truth to that. How do you manage it?
Like me personally?
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, I've been in law enforcement for 28, 29 years, and it's tough at times. I mean, it's not so much the law enforcement. I mean, that does add to it, but you throw in shift work, working nights. You're working long hours. That by itself. I mean, you can be doing that working at ConAgra.
Right.
That can bring challenges to your life, but you throw in the stresses of the job, far as some of the things. We see things that normal people don't see on a regular basis. Sure. We deal with other people's problems, and if you internalize that stress, it's going to eat at you. Of course, there's when you're a young officer, there's that adrenaline because I'm in all the action.
Right.
You're in the know, and but it does wear on you. And the way I would think balancing it, like I said, I know for me personally, I always tried when I was off, I tried to be off as much as I can. When I depend a lot on my faith to get me through it.
Yeah.
I have a good supportive family, wife. I try not to miss my kids' stuff. If I had to rearrange schedules, or a lot of times I lost a lot of sleep.
Yeah.
But I mean, you just made those sacrifices to make sure you had that balance.
Right.
And a lot of that's just person driven. To make sure that you're focusing on the right things at the right time.
Are there moments where? Well, let me ask it like this. How many times have we avoided major situations because of police involvement that the general public may not have known about? In other words, I would assume that there are more times that we don't know about where crisis was averted than we ever found out about in the news.
There's probably a lot of truth to that. I don't know if I could put an exact number on there, but
sure,
you can almost say, like a major catastrophe, because you never know. Because sometimes, we might have intervened in something simple and we saved a life and didn't know it.
Right.
Let's say like a domestic situation where we just either separated the parties, made an arrest. We might have saved someone's life if we hadn't been intervened. Or a DWI that we arrested, we might have saved a life down the road.
Right.
But as far as major, I mean, there's times, I'd say more regular than what people would think, that where police involvement either stops something major from happening or the potential of something major happening. And it's proper police involvement too. We sometimes we make tough decisions that, is this the right call? Because there's not a playbook that says if this happens, you do this. You're just making a decision based on human nature, experience, what you think is best practice, and but trying to taking our time and trying to make the right decision. Right. We probably have averted situations that could have got out of hand if we wouldn't.
Right.
If we would have handled it differently, or more heavy-handed, or not heavy-handed, or not, or too light.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of difficult decisions, but I think on a regular basis, we probably have averted a lot more situations that the public don't know about.
What do the people of Russellville need to know about the Russellville Police Department?
Oh, we're here for you. We're not perfect. We do our best to provide professional police services. Sometimes our youth and experience gets the best of us, but I think our heart's in the right place. I think everybody that works at the police department understands what our mission is, that we have a heart for our community. We try to serve the best we can. Sometimes I think people don't understand we're not all powerful like people think we are.
Right.
We are very constrained. we're at the mercy of a lot of different people,
Sure.
even when it comes to investigations or how we handle situations, anywhere from child custody, to waiting on lab results to find out if we can investigate further or not. I mean, there's just so many
Right.
different things that affect us, but we've got a good police department. We're here to serve you, and we appreciate the support. I mean, and we're looking to be progressive and move forward to provide the best police services we can for our community.
Well, Chief, that's the second time on the show. The third time's a charm. We got to do it again pretty soon.
All right, sounds good. Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
When we pre-gamed, and I know there's with the holidays coming up and everything, there's a lot of people that do call and ask, how can I support the police department?
Sure.
Because I've talked about support this whole time.
This whole time, yeah.
So a lot of people call, how can I support the police department? A simple thank you. If you see an officer, that's always great. We take those. We don't get those enough. But people say, well, how can I monetarily support the police department? We do have a Russellville Police Foundation. It's a nonprofit. It's separate from the police department, of a group of citizens that put this together to provide funding for things that we might not be able to afford through normal budgetary constraints. That's how we got our canines, was through the foundation, and that was an expensive project because of donations. So if anybody out there wants to support the police department, get a hold of me or Dr. Keith Scott. I think he's the president of the foundation, and we can explain how you can make that. If you want to support the police department monetarily, that's the way to do it.
Do you know if there's a website?
They don't have a website yet. I've been trying to talk them into that.
We need you to get a website.
I'm working on that.
Put it on the screen right here.
He's a little old school, but I like him. He's been a big supporter, and it's just a blessing that they've been able to, provide this support for us. I mean, a lot of our like tasers, our first round of tasers we got through the foundation. There's a lot of things that they provide, like I said, the canines. That was almost a $50,000 project that was funded because of the foundation. And so, and everybody who's donated to it, I appreciate that. But even if you don't want to do that, simple thank you to the officers, and we appreciate it. But I wanted to get that out there because I do get asked that a lot.
All right, Chief. Thanks so much. Let's do it again, brother.
Thank you, Drew, for having me.
All right, third time's a charm next time, man.
Third time's a charm.
All right.
All right, thank you.
That's David Ewing. He is the Chief of Police of the beautiful city of Russellville, and we thank you so much for joining us today on The Spotlight, as always, from the beautiful Alathus building right here in downtown Russellville. If you're in the market to buy or sell your home, give us a call today. It's 479-968-5668. My name is Drew Brent, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow.